have entered the waiting room. Who's in the waiting room? Oh, we got 3 people in there. Okay. Okay. Oh, we are recording? Are you guys? All right. Oh, here we go. Oh, okay. All right, I'm not actually speaking yet, so I take it. Can you guys hear this now? Can you? I see you. Good. All right. I'm like, I've never used Zoom before. I never had a conference. I've done a lot of online stuff, believe it or not, but the conferencing is new. And the problem, of course, is everybody is scrambling to conference, and that takes up a lot of bandwidth. So I've got you guys I've got you muted in order to like keep this. So if you need to contact me, obviously some of you are getting the fact that you can just type that in down here at the bottom. So hopefully, again, everybody should be admitted that can be admitted, and we'll get this started. And I think I'm going to try to share my screen here to see if that works well for you guys. Okay, and so as you can see, got a lot of stuff on here. It's actually kind of organized, and this might work a little bit better for us than the big blue button. We'll just have to see. So I just want to remind you guys, we are in week 9, and we are continuing to just pick up where we left off. So please understand, don't freak out, just move those dates in your syllabus, but this is week 9. It's just we're starting it at March 23rd, 24th, instead of last week at March 17th, 16th, and 17th. All right, so I introduced this before we left, but I really felt like, you know, A, we've been out of contact for a while, and B, you probably need that reinforced. So I hope you have been looking, and you know, the quiz that you guys took, it's open today through tomorrow, is only over joints. So that I'm hoping everybody has under their belt and they really understand this. So we really need to focus on these muscles of the head and neck. So I'm back to our objectives page, and hopefully again, admit all, sorry. So you And back to our objectives page. Let me close that down. And to remind you that what we want to try to go through today is muscles that move the head, neck, and face, and muscles that move the trunk and shoulder. And my word of advice is, again, remember that muscles are named for a number of things, and you should pay attention to that and think about that to help you remember it. Secondly, if they move some part of the body, that's what the insertion has to be on. And you are required to know name, location, where they attach, stable, origin, where they attach, mobile, the insertion, and what they do. And I do remind you again, right, that if you know where they attach mobile, the insertion, then you probably have a pretty good guess at their action. All right, so do consider that. All right, now, so I created a PowerPoint of your actual muscles here from your Mini-Men just to help us out here. And I'll try to figure out how there we go, there's advance. So here, looking at the Mini-Man, and I also have an image of the torso, so we could use either one on your practical, and the practical will be photos because we're not allowed to come to campus, and we'll just see how that goes. I've done AP1 online that way before. The only disadvantage, again, is that you're looking at a two-dimensional image and not able to hold and turn, right, this the model and prop around. So here, two of the muscles that you have to know for facial expression are both orbicularis, so they're orbiting and encircling, and of course when they contract, the muscle fibers contract, they shorten, and so this squeezes shut. So the orbicularis oculi, you can see that it's attaching to the frontal bone and the maxillary, stationary, and then it's inserting around the skin of the eye. And that's why when you blink, right, you move those eyes, right, blinking, that's what you get. You get that action of that muscle. For the orbicularis oris, it's the muscles near the mouth, and same thing, encircling. So they are actually originating, the orbicularis oris originates on these muscles and then inserts on the lips, on the skin of the lips. So this orbicularis oris, when you contract, you get that puckering kind of thing, right? And that helps you again. All right, so in the next slide, we've got the epicranius or occipitofrontalis, which again, it's named for its origin, which is in the back. We only have the anterior view on this slide, but it's, you would have that attaching in the back. The insertion, again, skin and muscle around the eye, because the movement of this insertion up here towards the origin causes this to raise your eyebrows. And again, you can see there's a nice straight fascicles that do that movement. The zygomaticus are on each corner. There's a set over here and there's a set over here. And the zygomaticus, there's a major and a minor. They are named, it is named for its origin on the zygomatic bone, right? This bone right here. And its insertion is actually on this oris, and we can see that it's into the orbicularis oris. So when the insertion moves towards the origin, we smile, right? You get that smile. So that one is hopefully obvious. Here in the Mini-Man, I already had this image pre-labeled with letters, so I just went ahead and used it. I may be able to take more photos. It just depends on how long they let us on campus, and yeah. So I say, please do not ignore the D. There isn't a temporalis. This is actually a muscle that moves the ear, but we don't have to know that one. A here on the is already got the blinking or the closed eye. So this orbicularis oculi shown on this half of the torso. B is the oris, and then C's are the major and minor zygomaticus. All right. Muscles for chewing, I don't have an image of the temporalis, and I'm going to have to get that because, again, this image is of a muscle like the previous, this is the Mini-Man, but like the torso head that I had previously, this is actually not the temporalis. So don't confuse that. So here again, I didn't list it here, but that's your orbicularis oculi. Your D is a zygomaticus. It's C and E I want to focus on in this image, and C is a masseter, nice straight fascicles. You can see where it's inserting on, because this is a chewing muscle, and it's inserting down here on the lateral border of the mandible. It's the masseter has its actual origin up here along the zygomatic arch, and so when the insertion moves towards the origin, you elevate the mandible. The sternocleidomastoid is not entirely shown here. We only see its insertion. All right, only see the insertion of it here, which is actually on this right mastoid process back here that you can feel just behind your ear. And that's where it gets part of its name. So this muscle is the only muscle we study that is named for its origin insertion. So here's our insertion. The origin is actually down here, right, on the sternum and the clavicle, hence the sternocleido. And so when the insertion moves towards the origin, you kind of do this, right, movement of the head, and it's on both sides. So again, you can't see the origin from this photo, but it's coming all the way down here, all right? For the trapezius, so now these are muscles that move the pectoral girdle, so that means, right, we're moving the scapula and clavicles. So please remember that, so insertion has to be on the scapula or the clavicles or both. This is a posterior view of the mini-man. I put the humerus in here because but your arms are missing. So posterior view of, you know, what we consider the trunk of the model. I don't have any images of the torso, the big man model, because the back side of that model is not very good for showing these, so there wasn't any need to do that. So here, the trapezius is named because it is a trapezoid, okay, and that's a geometrical figure, and you can see this amazing origin along here. So it's, right, starts up here at the occipital bone and all the way down, right, these spines, the spinous process of the cervical and thoracic vertebra. And then the insertion is over here, because we said moves the pectoral girdle on the clavicle and both the spine, because it's posterior, right, scapula, spine is in the posterior, and acromion process. So it's coming over here and it's having an insertion along here, which you can see as well. So as I said, on the practical, that should be a piece of cake if we ask for some of these, because you can see their origins insertions. So again, if you talk about action, well, we're moving the insertion towards the origin, so you get a lot of different things. So you actually can elevate, you can depress, you can extend the shoulder with this trapezius. It has a number of actions. Remember, you just have to pick one, all right? As well as if there's a number of different origins insertions, pick the one you remember. The rhomboids are like the trapezius. They're also named for their shape. So this is a rhombus here. If you look at this, again, might be a little hard to see in a two-dimensional photo, but the rhomboids, there is a major and a minor, but I said group them together. And so again, just like the trapezius, you can see this origin. The origin is along these spinous processes of the thoracic vertebra. It's like T2 through T5. And then the insertion is here along the scapula. Right? And so again, when that insertion moves towards that origin, you bring that shoulder kind of up. You can do a little bit of movement, other movement as well. You just pick what you can remember. All right, the muscles that move the pectoral girdle from the front. Now there's two in the front, two in the back. Please, please try to keep them straight. So the pectoralis minor is shown right here. This is the major, but the major moves the arm, so don't get confused by that. This one is attaching to the coracoid process, and so it is pulling that scapula kind of forward and down. So origin, I can see this, it's very clear along the costals, right, the sternal end of the costals, and part of, so part of the cartilage and part of the costals, right here it's attaching. So origin, insertion, coracoid process. For the serratus, I need to get a better photo because the mini-man is not the best, and I was looking through my photos as I was trying to scramble to put this together for you guys. I need to get more photos, and I hope, I didn't bring my iPad today, but hopefully they'll still let us on campus. I can bring it later. So the serratus anterior is basically, so before I forget that, let me mark this on my list. I need photos of these. Right. So the serratus anterior is basically just barely seen here. It's serrated, so it has this kind of jagged edge to it, and it is a helper. They are synergists. That's what we call them when they help each other out. And again, just a little bit more inferior, but on the surface of the ribs, same kind of origin as the pectoralis minor. And its insertion is then again on the scapula in the front. So the serratus anterior and the pectoralis minor really do the same kind of actions. All right, so this is looking at the mini-man's trunk region from the inside, and we want to look at these muscles that move the trunk. There's only one that's evident from the inside of the, so again, here's our costal, so we're inside. This is the wall of the abdominal and thoracic cavity. And so the transversus abdominis is right here, and it's so named because the fascicles are moving side to side. These have some amazing origins. So, you know, be cautious of that. I often don't ask them, but the origin, because it's a very broad muscle, is all along lumbar vertebra in the back, because it wraps all the way around, and the costal cartilage is in front and iliac crest. So its insertion is on the linea alba, which is this white line that we're seeing in the middle, and the crest of the pubis, so again, in the front. Now, I don't often, again, ask students to tell me about the origins insertions of these muscles that move the trunks, these abdominal muscles, only because they're not always so obvious to students. Now, all the muscles that move the trunk, right, and again, they're abdominal muscles, they make up the abdominal wall, all of them do the same action. They all are able to compress the abdominal cavity. And that's an important action for a lot of things that you don't consider, like breathing, right? It's extremely important for breathing, it's important for defecation, it's important, of course, for childbirth and lots of other things. But that's, its actions are all have a shared similar action, so don't waste a lot of brain space trying to keep them all straight. This is the anterior view. And so here we see the other three of the four. And remember, again, half the model is showing you the deep muscles, and half of them is showing superficial. So here, again, our pectoralis minor that we talked about previously. So here we've got the rectus abdominis, which is so named because it's in the abdominal region and it's straight. And so the rectus abdominis, its origin is actually down here on the pubic area, and its insertion is up here along the cartilage of the ribs, and you can see that. And the xiphoid or xiphoid process that's coming down right about here. So this one has one exceptional action besides compression of the abdominal cavity. This one allows you to flex, right, the vertebra. So the vertebral column is flexed. This is your sit-up muscle, right? So again, insertion comes towards origin, and when that happens, you bend forward, all right? The other two are obliques because their fascicles run to the sides, or run sideways, not straight or across like the transversus. And so the external oblique shown here, again, running on the outside, internal underneath it. They have very similar insertions, again, because they all compress. So even the transversus who had an insertion on the linea alba, right, this white line we see down here. On the iliac crest often, or the pubic crest, they also have insertion. So this allows them all to have the same action. So slightly different origins for the external obliques and the internal obliques. So this one is actually originating down here on the iliac crest, and then the external one is actually originating up here. All right. So that, right, is our basic, let's move that down there. That's our basic slideshow. Now, I also have a, so you've done your objectives, you've done this. I have, and let's see if I can share this as well, since I should be screen sharing. I have videos, and these, like, everything's in Canvas, or will be if it's not already. And I'm just gonna, actually, let me just open this one up, see if it'll open. All right, and play it. So I'm going to start with science and analysis again. I know I have videos to do this already, and but I wanted to do something more current. And
and try to make it, personalized to the class, so that even though you're not here, you're having an opportunity to, really experience.
Dr. Parsons?
Named
Yeah,
very appropriately. So
We can't hear the video.
it's recorded very faintly. If there's any way to control your audio, I can try this too. I could turn on my speakers. Can you hear it better now?
In some cases, I'll put it out. I've written that on the objectives.
It's a little better, yes.
Well, here I can try, because what happens is my speakers are picking it up, and the webcam is picking it up off my speakers. But the audio on the iPad is really low, so that's part of the problem.
Fascicles, and that's basically how all of these abdominal muscles are named. So, and I say again, some combination of this. So, oftentimes location is really important in naming, but we'll point that out as we go. So now, I'm just going to cover in this video the muscles that move the head, the neck, and the face. Okay, so you have 4 that end up responsible for facial expression. You have 2 for mastication, which is chewing, right?
Oh gosh, sorry guys.
And moving this bone right here, which is the only bone that moves, right, in the entire skull. And then you have 1 that is related to the movement of the head itself, okay? So starting from the top, quite literally, right? And let me caveat here. For these ones, of course, that are doing facial expression, their insertions are not going to be on bone, because the bones, right? No, sorry, there's a lot of backlight here. The bones that we're talking about here, because the mandible's missing, right? These don't move. So we couldn't insert on this and try to move a bone to get this expression. What we're going to do instead is we're going to insert on another muscle. So a rule that I give to students is I generally don't ask for origins insertions on the facial expression muscles. Okay. Well, as you look at this table that I gave you, the objectives for week 10, 9, 10, please group things as much as possible to make it easier on yourselves. So if you look at this list, the orbicularis oculi, the orbicularis oris, the zygomaticus, and the occipitofrontalis, or also known as the epicranius, are all here together, and you'll see the 2 automatically are the orbicularis, right? And then, so that's an orbit, right? That's encircling something, right? And then oculi refers to the eye, and oris, the mouth. So in the name, we're telling you a little bit about, right? And that's the nature of naming. So when we look for these muscles on our props and what we'll ask you on a practical, here in this mini-man, I need to get a pointer here. This, right, is the orbicularis oris. This is, sorry, orbicularis oculi. This is the orbicularis oris. When we look at the torso's head, right there in all its glory, this becomes, again, same place, eye, so orbicularis orbiting the eye, orbicularis oculi, and part of the orbicularis oris here, because we don't have the other half of the mouth. All right, so if we think about the fact again that I said that, you're seeing the direction that the muscle cells that are doing the actual contraction, you see the direction they're running. They're literally encircling his eye. So if muscles, right, are in their active phase, they are generally shortening. So I can picture all of this shortening, and I realize that this oculi does what this is happening right here. It causes you to blink or close the eye, all right? And again, the origins and insertions have to do with the skin around the eye, and then for the insertion, and the origin is actually on the maxillary and the frontal bones, right? So maxillary here and frontal here, which makes sense. And those are stationary points, right? For the orbicularis oris that encircles the mouth, right? Right, just encircles here, and we see it all in its entirety on the Miniman here, okay, going all the way around the mouth. Again, same idea. We can see these fascicles encircling it, and when they shorten, you would kind of pucker. You're kissing. Sorry, I'm not demonstrating action very well, but you would do this kind of kissing action or protrusion of the lips, because that's this muscle, right? Doing that. So again, think about that. If you when you blink, which you have to do a lot, right? And for the oculi and when you pucker up. Now for the oris, the origins and insertions here, again, insertion is going to be the skin of the lip, and the origin is even the muscles. So there's not even a bone involved in this one. For the zygomaticus, this is a lovely one because it's clearly named for where it's found, right? So here when we look at lighting, I'm going to work on this, get some help from people with experts. So the zygomatic bone is right here, your cheekbone. All right, so we know that the zygomaticus is going to have, right, and there's two on each side, right? They're going to have these origins on the zygomatic bone, okay? And then again, like I said, for all these facial expressions, their insertion is actually on a muscle, and in this case, it's actually on the muscle of the orbicularis oris. So the zygomaticus, there's actually a major and a minor, and this is not uncommon. You see this with the rhomboids, and they're here and here. And here again, you can see the bone. So the zygomatic bone, the cheekbone, right? Hence, these are the zygomaticus. And there would be another set over here. If I look at the Miniman here, okay, the zygomatics are right up here, okay, and of course on this side as well. So the zygomaticus, right, when you think of it, right, the insertion here on the oris and the origin here, when they shorten, I smile, right? So every time I smile, I'm using the zygomaticus, okay? And then the last one for facial expression is the occipitofrontalis or epicranius, all right? And this one, I chose to replace the platysma because I just didn't find the platysma very satisfying for students. So the epicranius, epi is always on top of, and that's exactly what you're looking at. It's a pretty long, it is connected through an aponeurosis, so it's extending all the way over. Its insertion is up here, its origin is back here on the occipital, so that's where it gets its name, occipito, right? Frontalis. So this basically raises your eyebrows. So this, right, fascicles are all running this way. So when they shorten, you pull the eyebrows up, right? So again, origin, occipital bone. So the insertion's pulled towards the origin, occipital bone back here. And the bones are shown in white as well as the connective tissues also in white. Yeah, I'm gonna get that lighting fixed on the next video, I promise. All right, so muscles of mastication. You have two of these and they should be grouped together. Mastication is chewing, and chewing is going to be involvement of this mandible. This great joint right here, again, lighting so bad. All right, so this great joint right here, right, the temporal mandibular is from that mandibular condyle. Right, these rounded parts here, these rounded parts here, right, actually making contact with the fossa, mandibular fossa, and the temporal bone. And as such, this synovial joint moves many ways. There's a lot of special movements here. There's this protraction, retraction kind of movement, the side-to-side excursion. And of course, what you do a lot, right, is elevating, right, and depressing. So bringing up the jaw and bringing it down in the back. So the two muscles we've chosen here are both elevators, right? And again, so insertions have to be on the mandible if I'm going to move the mandible. And then the origins can be in a variety of places. So here, as we look at the masseter, I'm not going to love that name, it's mass eater, right? Yeah, so the masseter is a pretty prominent, and it's very parallel. There's very straight fascicles that run right here, right? And so the masseter is actually just barely visible on this model. So, because it's covered by the parotid salivary gland. It is far more, and hence we probably use this, right? Obvious here on the Miniman. And you can even see this insertion down here and this origin up here. So the masseter and straight fascicles, so these move towards these, means that the origin of this one is here along that, right, zygomatic arch made from the temporal process and the zygomatic process, right? And then its insertion is here on this lateral border of the mandible. And so when insertion comes towards origin, you elevate the mandible, all right? So again, the Miniman shows his best. Now, the Miniman is also, the temporalis is not shown on this one, right? That's actually elevating the ear, so there's nothing on this side. It's been removed from this side. So we can only use the Miniman as it stands for this. And that's one thing I forgot just a minute here. Let me get a lid, if you will, for the Miniman. Where are all those videos? Face this stuff. Ah. Holy cats. I put these away because anyone else likes to use it. This thing. So this is probably not the cap. Oh, well, it's close enough for this one. All right. So on this Miniman with the capped in cranial cap on there, this is the temporalis. Okay, so you see it's over both the parietal and the temporal bones, right? But it's coming down here, and what you can't see is it goes behind this arch where the masseter attaches, and it actually, right, inserts on the coronoid process of the mandible, okay? So, and again, insertion comes towards origin and you elevate the jaw. So the temporalis is named clearly for its location. And again, here, lighting is something terrible here. I'll try to dim the other light. I hope this doesn't become too grainy for a second, just so you can see the skull. All right, and then I'll turn the light back on. All right, so temporalis is covering this area, going between, so underneath this feature, the zygomatic arch, and then it's inserting, right, on this coronoid process. This, and we said processes already are places where, right, the muscles insert. So the coronoid process, okay, that's where the temporalis is going to have an insertion and therefore elevate the jaw or manner. All right. So, right, the last one we want to talk about in this video and make this is the sternocleidomastoid. So this is the only example of a muscle that's going to be identified by its origin and insertion. Right. So sterno is sternum, cleido is clavicle, and mastoid is this lovely mastoid process right here. Okay. So on the temporal bone, big lump, right, on both sides, mastoid process. Okay, so sternum and clavicle right here, and comes up along here and inserts back here. So the sternocleidomastoid is seen, you know, be on both sides, but you only see it on this one side here. You can see it coming behind the ear where the mastoid process is, and coming down here to where the sternum. So again, looking at this skeleton back here, more lighting, right? Its origins would be right here and here. Okay, so on the clavicles and the sternum, right, is in the medial aspect. All right, I can see this on the torso as well, but this really is the best example for us. And again, as the insertion moves towards the origin, you basically pull the head forward, right? So you're flexing the head, right, coming this way and kind of twisting it a little bit, depending on which one, right? So again, movement pulls the head to one side, flexes the neck, right? And you can even get elevation of the sternum, and this happens when you inhale, all right? So that's our first page, muscles that move the head, face, all right?
Okay, let's see. Let me see if I can.
So I'm going to
stop that. Okay, let me, oh, there we are. Did you see the controls? So I do have another video here. If you still want to stay tuned. and we'll take a look at this. It's going to take us to the end of the class. It's 13 minutes.
Okay, in this video, we're going to take a look at the muscles that move the trunk and shoulder. And so again, you've got 4 that move the pectoral girdle, and you've got then the 4 that move the abdominal wall. So, so here, please bear in mind again, if we move something, the insertion has to be on that something. So the first group, the muscles that move the pectoral girdle, means the insertion has to be on, right, the scapular clavicle. And it's likely to be the scapula because that's the really cool bone of the pectoral girdle. But remember, that's clavicles here. I can't make him bend, so, or yeah, it's a hip. Okay. And then scapula back here. So the cool thing about these 4 is 2 are in the front, right, anterior, and 2 are in the back, posterior, right? So let's start with the 2 ones, because they're listed this way, that are posterior, and that is the trapezius and the rhomboids. And this time again, we're going to mash together like the zygomaticus. We're going to put major and minor together. All right, so the trapezius is named for shape. And if you're not into geometry, that's not so obvious to you. And the rhomboids are, by the way, too. So they're both named for the shape of the muscle. So the trapezius is this long trapezoid-shaped muscle right here, right? And again, you can see that it's having this insertion over here on the scapula, again. And then the rhomboids look like a rhombus, all right? So again, just know your geometry. And we can't see the actual insertion point, but we can certainly see the origins for both of these. Pretty good. That's a huge muscle, right? Now, note again what I said is the action is going to be determined by these fascicles shortening. So you already know, looking at this, as long as you know origin and insertion, and you remember that oftentimes insertions are lateral to origins or inferior, though not always. We know that this moves towards this, and as this happens, we get this elevation in the scapula, right? So for the rhomboids, again, major, minor, but we're going to just call them the rhomboids. We have a very evident origin here on part of the cervical and the thoracic vertebra. And if we want to be specific, we'd say the spinous process, right? And that would be, this back here. So the rhomboids, if you look at our skeleton without knocking it over, come on, buddy, right? We'd see, because actually from T2 to here to T5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be where the rhomboids would origin. And then the insertion is going to be on medial aspects, and that's all it says here, of the scapula. And so you're going to see this movement like this, and that's why we can see that the action for the rhomboids is to elevate medially, so bring it towards the middle and up. Or we can get this retraction of the shoulder, and that retraction of the shoulder is just pulling back, right? So when you retract something, it comes back. And again, you can picture that if you think about this group shortening. The trapezius, right, is a pretty complicated because it's huge, and you see that the fascicles are running a lot of different directions. So that's why the actions are extremely varied. But what you can see again is you can see this massive, right, origin. So all the way up to the occipital bone and all the way down through the thoracic, right, and cervical vertebra, right? So again, note that origin on these spines, and then the insertion point, because we said we're moving the pectoral girdle, so we have to insert on the scapular clavicle. Well, the insertion point would be, we're in the posterior, so the acremonian process, the spine, right, along here, and this we'd even have a little bit on the back here, but the origin, again, occipital bone down through thoracic vertebra, right? And then insertion here on the spine and the acremonian process, right? And we even have some insertion on the clavicle. So what happens here when we look at the action of this massive muscle is that it can do a variety of things. It can rotate the scapula, it can raise the scapula up, right? It can pull the scapula medial this way, right? or it can pull it down if these guys get active. It'll depress it as well. All right. Now, the other two are going to be on the front. We have to put our plate back on here. And I didn't use the torso model for this to show you the trapezius and the rhomboids because the torso is not that good, but for them, it's just the way they built it. Okay, so for the two anterior muscles that move the pectoral girdle, we have the serratus anterior. So hopefully again, anterior is in the front, and the pectoralis minor. These are actually neighbors. And so when you look at their actions, they do identical actions. They pull the scapula forward anteriorly, and they pull it down. Okay, so forward and downward, right? So that's their actions, and they're right here together. Right? So now the pectoralis minor, because remember this half is the deep muscles and deep structures, and this half is superficial. The minor does imply that there's a major, and there will be, but the major does not move the pectoral girdle because its insertion is completely different. So here we can see that the origins of this muscle here that we call the pectoralis minor are here along the costals, right? And this border the costals to the cartilage, all right? And so the origin here, and then the insertion, because we have to move the pectoral girdle, right, is on the coracoid. So we know the coracoid is an anterior. A little bit of cooperation, Mr. Skeleton. Okay. So the coracoid, when we consider the scapula, is right here in front, right? The crow's beak is this right here. So here what we're picturing on the skeleton is this muscle attaching right here, origins right here, and inserting right here. And so as the right insertion moves toward the origin, you pull the scapula down and forward, all right? The serratus anterior is so named because it looks like a serrated knife, right? The knife that's used like what we call a steak knife, these choppy edges, right? Serrations. And it's in the front. So it's kind of hard to see here because you can just barely make out these edges on this one. So oftentimes I do like this if I'm trying to ask for the serratus because it's pretty evident here. And again, in this model, here's the pectoralis minor and here's a serratus. So again, very clearly these jagged edges. All right, so the serratus anterior here, right, is going to be originating on the surface of the ribs, so the costals, and then the ventral, so anterior surface of the scapula. So nothing more. So the scapula's got a lot of surface area, so it's coming right here, anchoring it here, and coming back around to here, and that's where the insertion is. So again, insertion comes towards origins, and you pull the scapula forward and downward, okay? So the next four that we want to look at here on this video are basically the muscles of the abdominal wall. Now, they all have the same action. So group them together. There's four of these and they all do the same action. They're valuable muscles because if you consider the situation here in the abdominal pelvic cavity, which is right below the diaphragm and down to the pubis area or the pubic area, right? There actually aren't any bones, right? So we look at this big open space, right? So the abdominal wall is reinforced by these muscles we're looking at here, all right? So below the costals, again, we have nothing protective in the front. So we have this very, very well-developed abdominal wall to help us be protective of this, all right? And they also help us with a lot of different functions that people aren't aware of. Because what they do ultimately is they change the volume of this cavity, which changes pressures in here and helps with movement of all kinds of things, including air, right? And feces, right? So when you poop, right, you actually have a tension that occurs. So just something more to think about. But so the action as I listed it here is that they all tense the abdominal wall and compress the contents. So every single one of them. So we have an external oblique, we have an internal oblique, we have a transversus abdominis and a rectus abdominis, and every single one. Only with the rectus abdominis do we get an additional flex the vertebral column. And that's because, right, the rectus abdominis, which rectus means straight, and my gosh, those are straight, right? They're separated by tendons here. They create the six-pack feature that people talk about, right? But the rectus abdominis, named for straight fascicles and abdominal region, all right? And if we look at, sorry. If we look at the mini-man, I'm just gonna pull his plate here. That's the rectus abdominis again, right? And so the rectus abdominis has this wonderful origin insertion. So origin down here, the crest of the pubis bone, and the symphysis pubis, which is that joint right here that we introduced with joints. So this is a cartilaginous joint that holds the two coccyx together. And so right here along the pubis is its origin, all right? Its insertion is up here, right along the, again, the costals and the xiphoid or xiphoid process, which we can barely make out in this model, all right? So you remember the rule is that, right, the insertion moves towards the origin, and so this is your sit-up muscle, because if you move that towards that, you sit up, right? You do this movement upwards. So flexion of the vertebral column, all right? But otherwise, all four of these have the same action, so please group them together. They have different origins and insertions that go with the fact that they are running in different angles, because this whole group is named exclusively for the orientation or the positioning of these fibers like we showed with the rectus, okay? So, right, rectus abdominis is the external one, right? And then what we see, again, remember that we've got deep muscles here, superficial muscles here. We see over on this side, these fascicles running at an angle. And these fascicles, because this is the outside, are oblique. So at an angle, oblique, not straight. So this, right, is the external obliques, okay? The internal obliques would have to be on the inside, and hence on this model, there they are, right? So running at an angle, right? External, outside, internal, inside. So this is, you know, layers of this abdominal wall, all right? The transversus, well, transversus is side to side, and transversus would be here. That's the diaphragm on this model. So there's the transversus, side to side, okay? We look at this guy, we see what they're probably trying to represent as the external obliques, the rectus abdominis, and then we have, of course, a transversus in here, and then we start to get confused where the internal one is, though most likely the model maker probably wanted this to be the internal obliques. But they do show up better on the mini-man models, and so I would use those. All right, and then again, there's a variety of different origins insertions for these. And I generally, the rule I give my students is I don't ask those ones because they aren't, you can't group them. They don't group nicely. You'll notice that the external obliques are the outer surface of the lower ribs, right? The internal obliques are the crest of the ilium, so right back here, okay? And then the inguinal ligament, which we don't even study, so, right? And the origin of the transversus is the costal cartilages, and then again, the lower ribs, and goes all the way across to the lumbar vertebra. So this, again, this is encircling. So it's attaching down here and going all the way back here for its origin, okay? And insertions, you'll notice that you've got a lot of them inserting on the linea alba. So that is, of course, the white line, all right? You know, right there, linea alba, because that's what it means, white line, all right? And so, you know, but each of them having the very same action. So I hope this gives you a little bit more to think about, and look forward to talking to you more.
Okay. Oops. Sorry.
Okay, in this video,
Stop. Okay. So at this point, let me minimize that. At this point, we really have covered everything we need to cover. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and end the meeting. And thank you guys for watching. And I do hope, again, that you this has been helpful. Please let me know through messages or if you have any concerns or comments, please let me know. All right. And I'll check. All right, let's check who all showed up. Stop recording.